Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Joel Rosen. I am the Adrenal Fatigue Recovery Ninja, and today I want to talk to you about the relationship between stress and low libido. So a common question that I get from a lot of my males are, hey doc, I'm totally stressed out and I have low libido. And another question is, I have low cortisol. Is there a relationship between that and low libido? Or I have high cortisol. So the question I would ask you to ask in a better way is there a relationship between stress and low libido? And I would say absolutely there is. When we're stressed out, then ultimately we have the likelihood of feeling run down, not feeling recuperative or regenerative, not feeling like we have a lot of strength and vigor, crashing in the middle of the day, and just not being ready to perform and having low libido. And there is absolutely a relationship. However, I don't want you to think of it in terms of it's low cortisol, because it could actually be high cortisol. In more than likely situations, it is high cortisol, depending on how long it's been going on for, depending on your genetic susceptibilities, depending on your nutritional status, depending on other variables like infections or chemicals or toxins or traumas. All of the above will contribute to the relationship of low libido. So don't worry so much if it's low cortisol or high cortisol at the moment. So what I wanted to tell you about is the adrenals, they get their message from the pituitary, and the pituitary gets the message from the hypothalamus. So you sort of have the brain signaling the pituitary, telling the adrenals to make cortisol. But here's the thing, when you get a flow chart like this, and you've had your doctor say something like pregnenolone steal, where you'll steal the raw materials, and I've said this myself until I've done further research and learned a little bit about how these flow charts can really steer you wrong, is the fact that you don't really have a stealing away of pregnenolone from one major pool into the cortisol bucket at the expense of DHEA and testosterone. You just don't have that, because what happens is in the adrenals you have three different layers of the cortex. You have the different layers that make mineralocorticoids, you have different layers that make cortisol, and different layers that make DHEA and testosterone. And you also have that occurring in the gonads. So the adrenals aren't the only place where that happens. But ultimately, this flow chart with the enzymes and the substrates and the stereogenic cortisol and cholesterol pathway, it's not the same for each region of the cortex. So you're going to have different activity in the area that makes the mineralocorticoids, different activities in the areas that make the cortisol, and different activities that make the DHEA. But what we do find is when we're under stress, then you'll have a lot more ACTH receptors for cortisol, and as a result, you're going to have orders of magnitude much more stimulation of cortisol, and what's going to happen is you're going to have decreased output for DHEA. Not necessarily stealing it from a bucket that has only a finite amount, but enzymes get upregulated and downregulated. Hopefully that made sense to you guys. So what does that mean? Well, it means that ultimately when you take a cortisol test, or you take a blood test, or you take a urinary test, which we do all three, then you'll see that your DHEA levels are quite low, or you'll see that your testosterone levels downstream from DHEA are quite low, or you'll see the enzymes that take the bite out of testosterone be quite high, and that's called high 5 beta. You see a lot of people that have had Propecia or finasteride or even spironolactone or antibiotics, they'll have that 5 beta be upregulated. So it's not so much that they have low libido because the cortisol is upregulated and the DHEA is downregulated, but your body is inherently taking a androgenic property of testosterone and making it less effective. That's one way that we can see that. Sometimes we'll see aromatization where you have testosterone and then it converts into estrogen, and that's because of the same potential reasons that you would see some of these other enzymes downregulated, which means increased stress, increased blood sugar instability or insulin resistance, or high glucose loads in the body, high carbs, high sugars, even high proteins, because you're getting too much gluconeogenic activity out of that. Or you may see things like infections, and that's what we normally see, where cytokines, TNF alpha, IL-6, these interleukin mediators that really impact the pituitary and then cause down regulations of different activities of the cortex of the adrenals, thereby lowering the DHEA and testosterone. And over time, what you'll see is that feedback loop. Now that cortisol's so high, it ultimately feeds back to the hypothalamus and says, hey, you need to stop sending signals to the pituitary because the adrenals tell us that there's already enough in there. Eventually, that's going to downregulate both DHEA and cortisol, and over time you're going to have someone who's just completely burnt out, can't handle stress, crashes in the middle of the day, gets very, very shaky, lightheaded and jittery, and has no libido. So it really depends on where along the pathway you are, how long it's been going on, and we really suggest looking at all three tests. Looking at glucose test is really important in fasting insulin, but looking at saliva, urine, and blood, and get an idea as to where are these hormones compensating, and then ultimately what can we do to fix this. So anyways, I hope you found that helpful. My name is Dr. Joel Rosen. I am the Adrenal Fatigue Recovery Ninja. Make sure you give me a like, a thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel, check me out on Facebook, and check me out at adrenalfatiguesociety.com, where we have many, many articles and videos to help you recover from your adrenal fatigue nightmare. Thank you so much.